The age of AI doesn't merely require new tools, it demands fundamental shifts in how we lead. And where leadership is concerned, a common misconception is that Agile advocates eliminating managers. Rather, it calls for management to develop and exercise their leadership muscles more, shifting away from rigid control that can become an impediment to success. Traditional management excels at structured, predictable projects while hindering complex evolving products and services that require adaptive leadership. Today, we'll differentiate between management and leadership, emphasizing why Agile and AI workplaces require fewer traditional management behaviors, and they require more genuine leadership practices that inspire, adapt, and create psychological safety. While not a bad thing in itself, this isn't just about creating nice work environments. As many companies ready to navigate into Agile and AI, getting the right balance of management and leadership defines the difference between successful AI implementations that complement human potential and failed implementations that undermine it. So, first, let's set a context. We've been talking about theory X, Y, and Z. Theory X is control based. It assumes employees dislike work and need constant supervision. Because Theory X prioritizes control, standardization, and compliance, it aligns closely with traditional management practices, which are focused on efficiency and risk mitigation. Does that mean that control, standardization, and compliance are bad? Control, we can have a lot of philosophical conversations about that, and it does create a lot of problems. However, standardization and compliance, there's a lot of benefits and a lot of need for these things. So they're not inherently bad. They do create challenges, and how we manage them is important. We can't ignore them moving forward, and we can create the conditions for their requirements to be fulfilled without requiring control. That's the key. And that can only be achieved through leadership. Theory Y is autonomy based. It assumes people are self motivated if we create the right conditions. Now, Theory Y represents the middle ground, where management still inserts some direction while increasingly relying on leadership skills like trust, coaching, and enabling individual growth. And then we have Theory Z. That's long term based on trust, collaborative decision making, and shared purpose. Theory Z leans furthest into leadership. It emphasizes relationships, shared ownership, and cultural alignment, the hallmarks of visionary, human centered leadership. Agile and AI thrive in Theory Y and Z environments, where leaders cultivate trust, empower teams, and embrace change as a constant. And this is where Warren Barroness's statement becomes really important for us to understand. He said that managers do things right and leaders do the right thing. So management focuses on efficiency, process, repeatability, while leadership focuses on vision, courage, and adaptability. These are two completely different approaches. Management is there to enforce, to check, to verify, to have a checklist and make sure that critical steps are followed. Because we have critical steps and we know what they are, we have experience that has determined over a long period of time that approaching different types of work can be done most successfully in specific ways. That's very different from what Agile AI need. So, connecting the dot, when we're talking about project work, waterfall, that's the domain of project work. We have a defined scope, a defined timeline, and deliverables, and also budgets. And that's a big piece because financials dictates a lot of these requirements. The projects, which are finite in time, they have a defined scope that has to be met within a certain time. You have to start at a particular time, you have to finish at a particular time. Why? Because you have allocated monies to support the initiative for that period of time. And if you go beyond that, now that's a cost overrun. That's not okay. And that is appropriate for work that you can define as a project with a clear beginning and a clear end. Products and services are not like that. Products and services don't have a beginning and an end. We don't create products and services to end them. We create products and services to continue them for as long as possible, because that's our opportunity to capture revenue from delivering those products and services. Very different. These are very different types of work. So back to waterfall. Structured management excels at repeatable, predictable tasks, and it creates the necessary systems of approaches, processes in order to ensure that those are delivered correctly. So that we need to have clear processes and defined control mechanisms to ensure the predictability and minimize variance from simple and complicated work where we can minimize variance. The metrics, compliance, and standardization, these are the North Stars. These are the compass that guides all of our actions and all of the work that needs to get done. That's the priority. And in that type of environment, change, no. Change is treated as an exception. This wasn't part of the plan. It wasn't supposed to happen. Why do we have change? That is not valued. There is no direct perceived value in change. Completely different. When we look at the evolving nature of human work, we have to recognize that the old ways of managing work are old. And I'm old enough to say that. We need to look beyond that. We need, but not in a way of saying we failed. No, and I think that many coaches, unfortunately, leave people feeling that, and I think that's horribly unfair, and it's incorrect. They're old because the times have moved on and the requirements of the workforce and the work that needs to be delivered are different. For the time that we built things in the past in the old ways of management and very tight controls, that worked well for the type of work that we were doing. And we were very successful. I mean, I was the manager just like everybody else who developed under waterfall because that was the only thing that existed. And it wasn't until I was introduced to an agile way of doing things that I considered a different way. And believe me, the transition from waterfall to agile was extremely difficult and painful. But once I got that and I understood that, it really showed me how it was the nature of the work that was evolving that required a different approach. And doing things in the command and control way, the old way of doing things, no longer worked. It created a lot of problems and created a lot of impediments. So the diminishing returns for that traditional management in the context of new agile, constantly changing, ambiguous, volatile type of work. Rigid structures slow down innovation. You can't order people into innovation. That doesn't work. And when you create an environment where you put pressure and innovate, I'm sorry, that doesn't work. Human beings can't do that. That is not the way that the human brain works and human psychology works. The bureaucracy of these systems suppress initiative and increases employee disengagement. I've heard it so many times from traditional managers. People are disengaged. Why are they so disengaged? They don't have any accountability. They don't hold themselves accountable for the work. What kind of work ethic is this? They always point the finger and blame it on the workers. And I'm sorry, but it's the management structure that's creating that environment. It's the response from the workers to behave and think and feel that way because they're not allowed to think. They're not allowed to innovate. That is punished, yet it's demanded. And there's a real contradiction there. And again, I'm old enough to say this. We have to move on. We have to feel proud and happy about the things that we achieved and recognize that the world has changed. And all of that simple stuff, all of that control-based stuff, that's going to be taken over by AI and automation because it can create the formula, the process, the system to manage it, and it will do it itself. It will manage its own work as a project, and it will execute it very nicely, very repeatably, very well, because that is its strength. And that is no longer the interesting work, and that is no longer the majority of the critical work that humanity has to tackle. The overemphasis of waterfall on control that can lead to compliance, um, that creates more of a theater, appearing to be aligned without real buy-in, because people haven't internalized. They don't take the time to internalize the meaning and the importance of what they're doing. They're just looking at, I received certain order, I execute the order, I did my job, great, moving on. But they weren't really bought into it. They really weren't invested in what they were doing. We're moving past that. We're at a point where it's still early and AI, it's unreliable. You give the same prompt to an AI three times, you're going to get three responses. And sometimes that's okay. That's perfectly fine. There's a corpus of work that it's okay for it to operate that way. And that will be the low-hanging fruit that we can start with and learn from it. So there's nothing wrong with that. And there's other areas of work that absolutely that's unacceptable. We need to have repeatable results that we can trust in to minimize risk and to ensure that we are clear about what we are implementing and how. So we're on a path, we're on a journey. We're not quite there yet, where AI and automation can truly take over all of the work that can be taken over. However, it's clear that we are on that path. It's clear that we're heading that way. So all of that management approach to control is going to be replaced by the AI systems themselves that automate the work, that type of work. So what remains in the human work to be done is characterized by increasing complexity, ambiguity, and rapid adaptation. And that's what human beings are good at. That's what we excel at. AIs don't. AIs can give us the illusion and it can appear, at least right now. ASI comes in, who knows what's going to happen. But if we're looking at AI today, no, it's not good at what humans excel at. And that's the opportunity. It's the opportunity to use AI for what it's good at and to raise humanity's ability to perform, to think, to create, to adapt to the situations, the market situations, the product situations, all of the conditions that get thrown at us in the best way possible, leveraging AI to do the stuff that is repeatable. So it's a really good combination, and I think it puts humanity in a really good place to evolve to a different way of working that, frankly, I think is much more interesting. It's less droning, it's less repetitive, and it can be a lot of fun. However, to achieve that, it requires leadership. Not people going around ordering people to be creative and deliver. That doesn't work. It's by inspiring people, by pointing them the way, by helping them understand why certain outcomes are needed for the success of the company and them personally. That's leadership. You can't order that. You need to inspire people to get there. That's why psychological safety is important because people need to feel the freedom and the safety to try things. And why are we talking about trying and experimenting? Because we don't know, because we didn't spend the time to think about it. A lot of managers say that, and that's very dismissive. No, it's not because we're not spending the time. It's not because we're being lazy. It's because it's not possible to do. When you have an AI that's constantly changing the landscape, you look day by day and everything is different. Last month's image generator, you look at it today and go like, oh, gee, that's ugly. Today, it's completely different. The same thing with all the models that we're seeing and their capabilities. So everything is changing and it's going to continue changing and at a very fast pace. So no, we can't figure it out. We have to adapt as it emerges, as it becomes available. And the point of the true leader is to align the team efforts with that overarching purpose and meaning, worrying less about how we implement it because the opportunities, the options are growing exponentially, and more about making sure that we stay on track towards that North Star direction end goal, not end goal, that connotes that we can finish it, but the destination, the heading that we need to get to. That's what's important. And that's what leaders can really help us do that. Leaders balance human creativity and AI driven capabilities. They help us integrate the two in a way that are helpful to each other, not in a way that one dominates over the other. Leaders must ensure AI supports human decision making, not replace it. Again, ASI comes in, who knows? We'll see what that looks like and we'll see how good it is. But for now, I don't know about you, but the having an AI taking over decision making for humanity, I'm sorry, I'm not ready quite for that. After all, it is based on the internet, and I'm not sure that the internet has all the answers or yet answers that we would all agree with. So we really need humans to step up and look at what AI is doing and ensure that AI remains aligned with human interest and developing humans, not limiting us. Creativity, empathy, and ethical reasoning remain the human strengths. And this is what's going to help us make sure that we avoid pitfalls, the real dangers of AI implementation as we move forward. So we need our AI workforce to really step in and be leaders within the scope of work that they're doing. So leadership is responsible for preventing the misuse and fostering transparent, ethical AI deployments. Now, if you're looking at implementing, the first thing that you want to be looking at is assessing your organization's leadership and management balance. It's not about replacing management with leadership. There are aspects of management that we will always need. But what is the balance between the two? Are you relying more on control and dictating than you are on enabling and supporting, nurturing? What is the balance? And different companies will have different balance needs. I'm not suggesting that there is one size fits all. That's the whole point of Agile. There isn't one size fits all. We have to look at the specifics of a company, of a culture, of the business, of the products and services that are being created in order to make sure that there is an alignment. Where is structure control enabling the value of your work? Where it is, great, keep that, leverage that. That's an asset. And equally, be open to identifying where it's constraining it and get rid of it. There is no more time and for the luxury of holding on to it. We have to let go and move forward. So, if you're going to move forward in this direction, and if you're going to take seriously this a guiding principle to get us to proper, good, safe AI implementations. First thing is start small. I always say start small. The Kaizen approach is critical to make sure that we reduce the risk as we're changing things. We can't go to a team that has never made decisions on their own and tell them overnight, okay, you're now empowered, go make decisions. They don't know how to do that because we've been doing it for them all this time. We have to recognize that. It's like giving somebody a bicycle who has never ridden a bicycle in all their life, and at 30 years old, you give them a bicycle and you say, your next task is to go to the Olympics and get a gold medal. Excuse me, what? No, we have to go through the steps, and we have to give opportunity for people to learn, to learn how to adapt, to learn how to make decisions without having to look over their shoulders all the time and ask for permission. That's what we want them to move away from. And doing it in a way that's safe and in a way that's not going to put the business in jeopardy. So always start small, do small experiments, give the teams the space to own their outcomes. And when they go wrong, and they will make mistakes, they will have cleanups to do, well, give them the opportunity to do that. Because by learning how to clean up of your mistakes, that's how you'll learn how to not make them. I remember learning how to roller skate. Well, yeah, you learn how to roller skate by falling. And once you fell enough times, you'll learn how not to fall. Same thing with everything that we do. We need to have the flexibility to make those mistakes and recover, learn how to recover from them. And that will give us whatever we need in order to avoid the mistakes. And when they happen, clean them up quickly. As a leader, I always look at teams not from the perspective of an expectation that they're always going to perform perfectly. In fact, I never hold that expectation. What I'm looking at, my priority is how quickly can this team recover from failure. That's what I care about. And I encourage them and I support them to figure things out on their own. It's very easy and it's very understandable. So you see people in the middle of the fire, and you sometimes, out of lack of patience, because you want it done immediately, you want to correct it right away, and sometimes out of real caring, you want to step in and help them. You're seeing them struggle, and you have the solution, and you want to step in and help them. It's very hard to resist that temptation, and you have to. Because a true leader allows people to develop that capability on their own in a way that makes sense to them. The solution that makes sense to me doesn't necessarily make sense to everyone, and it's not necessarily the best solution for everyone. We have to allow people to come up with their own solutions, both through implementation and to course correction when needed. That's how they're going to always keep their hands on the steering wheel, always be in charge, always be on top of everything because they own it, because it's their creation, it's from their perspective and their vision. So the first thing that we need to do is resist that impetus, that drive to step in and do something about it. From a waterfall perspective, we're wired, we're coded to do that, and that's really hard to overcome. I understand. I've been there. I know. And it's essential that we do that because only when we do it will we finally see the teams doing it themselves. And once they're doing it, our jobs become so much easier. And we can truly be focusing as leaders on the things that are going to make the most impact and the best benefit for the company, everybody at large, as opposed to worrying about every little minutia, every little detail. We don't have to keep track of that. We have entire teams to do that. Now, the building that leadership capability doesn't happen just in leadership management circles. It's not reserved to C-suites and the directors and managers, supervisors. No, we want to build leadership capability at all levels because the more leadership we have across the company, the more support the company has as a whole. And this has a real scaling, magnifying effect. When everybody sees that others have demonstrated leadership and have helped themselves, the company, team members, there is a real, it's very inspiring. It really inspires people to do that when they're capable and able to do it. And not everybody has to be a superstar. There will be moments and opportunities for people to shine. They will do that as long as we create the culture within the company to do it. We want to encourage upward feedback and foster learning loops across the hierarchy. It is to say to remove the glass ceilings and all of the impediments that waterfall has created, preventing people from bring their concerns and be transparent to all levels of leadership and management in a company, so that everybody is working off of the same information. That's what creates opportunity for people to step in and help when necessary and to provide mentorship, coaching, guidance as needed. And we want to introduce leadership retrospectives. Now, this is one that a lot of leaders struggle with at the beginning because, again, we're so wired from waterfall that leaders have to have the answers. They always have to have the answers. And we put them up on this pedestal like they're going to never make any mistakes. Of course, we make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, but we're so programmed to hold to that expectation in front of everybody's eyes and ourselves that the concept of people giving us feedback, we resist it. And whether it's arrogance, ego, or just simply we're not accustomed to it, for whatever the reason, we're missing out on the best opportunity to make sure that our leadership style and approaches are aligning well with the people that we're trying to lead. So by getting that feedback, we really can see the mirror and see how we are performing as leaders. And we can adjust and adapt in a way that everybody needs, not just what our concept of leadership is. Different people need different things. Some people need inspiring statements. Other people need real open recognition. Others may need actual guidance and mentorship. There are many different things that people need. So that feedback can help us make sure that we remain aligned to what people need so that we can deliver that to them. So takeaways. Agile and AI transformations aren't about eliminating management. They're about elevating leadership, which is a non-negotiable requirement moving forward. AI needs that. AI requires that. There are, when you look at AI work, there are two types if we were to lump, to categorize the work associated with AI. There's the deployment and the management of AI technologies themselves. And those can probably be managed in most cases as projects. Those, we have the systems, we have the processes, and we can get those done. But that's just the technology. That's just getting the technology in place and being able to maintain it. It's really not much different, complication, more complicated, but it's not much different than an operating system, an application, or other tools that we use. That, yes, can probably remain, probably to be determined, but can probably remain under the domain of project. And by its nature, AI will probably end up managing it going forward into the future. That's less interesting. The more interesting piece is the products and services that we can create using AI. And that's the piece that requires, that's the piece where the agility, the business agility, the leadership as the approach is a non-negotiable requirement. Because if we don't apply leadership and we stick to the management, command and control, dictating, determining, mandating, we are not going to be successful in our implementations, because those implementations are going to be rigid. They're going to be constrained by definition, and they're going to be funneled through the managers. That's queuing. That is creating a single point of failure in our implementations. That's too dangerous. One single person, or as many people as managers as you want to throw at it, still, it's very few people who have their hands to drive all of that work. No, that's no longer acceptable. We need to do as much as possible with everybody that we have available to us. And it doesn't matter what their role is, what the department, whether it doesn't matter. They have a capable mind. We want that mind to be engaged and helping us figure it out. And the way to do it is through leadership. It's by demonstrating to them and helping them understand the importance of what we're doing so that they can feel invested and jump right in whenever they can, because they can. That's what we get out of leadership. Management has not created that. So success hinges on adaptability, trust, and purpose, not just control. And that comes from leadership, not management. So, with that, if you'd like to learn more about the differences between leadership and management approaches, click one of these. I'll be happy to tell you all about it.